You are Locked On Dodgers Postcast, part of Locked On Los Angeles on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
That is right. 2 days in a row. Welcome to the Dodger Postcast. I am Pete Fox. Thank you for joining me here on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel, the place to hang out when every game is done. You can also check us out on the Locked On Dodgers podcast feed. So for those of you that are new to this, the Dodgers daily podcast with Jeff and Vince will still continue. But now, after most games, I will come on immediately on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel and break it down for you. So we did that yesterday. We did it today. The finale of the 4-game series against the Cards at the Ravine. I will split my time occasionally back and forth between the Clippers until their season comes to a conclusion. They got the win tonight in Charlotte against a lackluster Hornets team. So we figured this game would be a little bit more interesting coming off yesterday's loss. I've been covering sports in LA for ESPN LA and NBC Sports Radio dating back to 2007. Tonight's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Well, the Dodgers had to rally once again, and they did in the 8th inning. I almost feel like it was a complete waste of time, like yesterday, to watch the early portion of this game. I'm like, I just get so frustrated. They don't seem to care. They're just out there going through the motions for the first 5-6 innings because they know that they can just flip that switch. They can turn it on and rally and score runs. And tonight, or today rather, it wasn't even the big three at the top of the lineup. Mookie Betts 0 for 4, Shohei Ohtani 1 for 4 with a run scored, Freddie Freeman 0 for 3. It was Max Muncy who didn't even start. So as he put it, it was quite the productive off day for me. The game-winning home run in the 8th rather. And then Daniel Hudson came in and locked it down 1, 2, 3, a couple of Ks and a ground ball, and it was over and done with. Dodgers take 3 of 4 from the Cards, 5-4 today at the Ravine. Again, Max Muncy had 2 hits off the bench, pinch hitting, 2 RBI, including the game-winning 2-run home run, which was a breaking ball that didn't quite break enough, and he absolutely obliterated it down the right field line. Turn and burn. See you later. 2-run homer. Dodgers grab a 5-4 lead. But here's how the whole 8th inning went. As I did last night, I kept track of the leadoff men getting on base. It was working well for the Cards, but not so much for the Dodgers. They had 2 on to lead off an inning throughout the entire afternoon. In the 2nd and the 6th, they did not score in the 2nd or the 6th. Actually, no, they scored in the 6th. That is correct. So we know that getting the leadoff man on is very important. It seemed to be a little bit more important for the Cards today. But even in the 8th, when they grabbed the lead on 3 in that frame, did not get the leadoff man on. Freddie Freeman, a lazy ground ball, kind of up the middle, a little bit to the right of second base, out number 1. Then Teoscar Hernandez came up and launched one into left field to make it 4-3, much like yesterday. Mookie Betts got a solo shot, which rallied the team. So obviously that is, I don't know if that's a game plan. Hey, let's get somebody to come up and hit a solo shot, which will get us fired up, and then we'll rally and win the game. Of course, yesterday they did not win. They tied the game, though, in the 9th and went to extras and fall 6-5 yesterday. But today, Teoscar Hernandez, his 3rd home run of the season, first only one of this game, rather. He had 2 a couple of nights ago. So that made it 4-3. Then Chris Taylor came up, who had a good game. He got the start in left field, walked 3 times, 1 hit and a run scored. So he had a really solid, perfect afternoon. His 3rd walk got the bases. Were they loaded at that point? No, but it put 2 men on, and it forced a pitching change for the Cards. And then Chris Taylor stole second, and then Muncy promptly launched that ball into the right field stand. So there would not have been two men on, just one man on at that point, that being Chris Taylor. So after the 5-4 lead for the Dodgers, James Outman came up and he struck out, and he's absolutely in a bad way right now, struggling tremendously. I am familiar with James Outman because his uncle is one of my good friends that I went to college with. So I followed his career from Sacramento State through the minor league system and to the majors, making a rapid, steady climb. Had a great year last year. I believe he finished third in the Rookie of the Year voting. And everyone knows James Outman if you're a Dodger fan. And I think the expectations maybe are getting to him a little bit. I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but I tell you this, he does not look right. His swings are half-assed, not committed. I don't know what's going on. He just seems to be beaten more often than not. He's not locked in. So I'm not saying that will continue. Obviously, he'll more than likely figure it out as long as Dave Roberts gives him the opportunity, because his batting average is 118. So he's definitely got to find something and keep clawing away, because I haven't seen him look this out of sync in a long, long time. But today, again, came up multiple times in clutch positions with runners in scoring position and struck out. He did have an RBI, but it was on a ball that he barely made contact with. It was a little fielder's choice, but it scored the run. So he put the ball in play and he did what he needed to do. That made it 4-2. So I guess that's worth something. Gavin Lux, who also did not start, had an impact on this game. Actually, no, he did not. Sorry. He popped out and then struck out to end that rally in the 8th. So what struck me as frustrating in this game throughout on both sides really was the framing. I'm so sick of this framing stuff. The catcher for the Cardinals did a fantastic job, Wilson Contreras, of duping the umpire. And I'm, when it comes to a lot of the new innovations in baseball, I'm on board. I'm cool with them. But I'm also somewhat old school with a lot of things. One thing I am not old school about is automated robot umpires, because although I will say the human umpires have upped their game, they still get duped a lot. And tonight was a perfect example. Wilson Contreras was framing his ass off, and the umpire was falling for it over and over and over again. And it's just getting frustrating. The Dodgers got a few, but not nearly as many as Wilson Contreras did. I mean, he was framing all over the place, balls that were, a full ball or two outside of the strike zone, and he called them strikes. And it just, fortunately it didn't affect the Dodgers today, but it could. So it was just frustrating to see all this framing. I'm okay with an occasional frame if it's done right at an opportunistic time, but not every single ball that's out of the zone, the catcher pulling it back in, constantly pulling it in, pulling it down, lifting it up. It's Wilson Contreras. Give him credit. He's figured something out because he is really good at it. They talked a lot about how he's upped his game and how he's worked really hard in the offseason at becoming a better defensive catcher. And I think all of that has to do with his ability to frame. Holy cow. I mean, there were so many balls that were called strikes because of Wilson Contreras' framing ability. It is flabbergasting. So I guess we should give him credit, but at the same time, the league should be on top of this, and the umpires should not allow that much framing. Occasionally, fine, as I said, at an opportunistic moment, to add a little drama, but not every ball that's outside of the zone just because the guy's got quick hands. Ridiculous. But again, it didn't really hurt the Dodgers too much. They come from behind tonight to win it 5-4 on a Max Muncy 2-run home run in the 8th. We'll take our first break and we'll come back and get into the pitching performances because the Dodgers starter, Gavin Stone, looked pretty good. I'm Pete Fox. This is the Dodger Postcast. Thank you for joining me here on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel, the place to hang out when every game is done, and for listening on the Locked On Dodgers podcast feed. All right, as I said, tonight's show is brought to you in part by our friends at FanDuel. Say goodbye to your busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney, whether you've got it in your bracket or not. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a one seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers to FanDuel get $200 in bonus bets if your $5 bet wins. That's 200 bonus bucks to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win the entire tournament now that they are down to the final four. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. All right, Dodgers take 3 of 4 from the Cards at the Ravine to start off the season on a nice little run. 2 games where they were not really doing that well in the early part of the game. The first 5 innings, you could have just skipped it. There was a lot of frustrating stuff going on, especially all that framing. But in the end, they rallied for 2 in the 6th and then 3 in the 8th to win it 5-4. As far as Gavin Stone, we don't know a whole lot about him. He pitched 31 innings last year and had a 9 ERA, but has pretty live stuff. 4 pitches, sinker, fastball, of course, change, and a cutter. And he occasionally mixes in a curveball, which looks rather different than the sinker does. The sinker and the cutter look very similar. The change is his hammer, and it was working for the most part. I believe he finished with 5 or 6 Ks on the day, but most impressively, 6 on the day. He started off by striking out the side to start the game, and I love that. That just gets me in such a good mood when the Dodgers strike out the side in the first inning. It happened yesterday with Yamamoto. He was just dealing, 3-pitch K to start the game and struck out the side in the first inning, as did Gavin Stone today. So hopefully we can keep that going for a long stretch of time where they're just striking out the side to start the game, because that puts you in the right frame of mind and gives you a little bit of confidence. So I thought he looked really good. And for the most part, he gave up 7 hits. There were times where, I don't necessarily want to say he made the wrong pitch, but I felt like he was pressing just a little bit. But all in all, 6 Ks, you can't complain too much. And as far as, the 3 runs on 7 hits, what did he give up? He gave up 1 in the 3rd, 1 in the 5th, and 1 in the 6th. So he spread them out pretty nicely. And part of that was, on the other side of things, the Dodgers were just struggling. They couldn't figure out Steven Matz at all. He went 5 1/3, gave up 2 runs on 5 hits, but he was hitting as they were calling it during the game, he was hitting the frame, the edges of the plate, and was just dealing, really. I mean, he was dialed and pitching very well. So Dodgers were having a tough time with that. And with the assistance of Wilson Contreras's frame jobs, it really, had him rolling. He only had 3 Ks, but the Dodgers could not figure him out for 5 innings. I wrote down that they just looked completely lifeless at the plate. Nothing really dominant to speak of. I mean, Shohei Ohtani is completely pressing. He did have a nice double where he got rhythm and found one, right in the zone that he'd been looking for and just hammered it down the right field line. But his first at bat, a looking K, and then he struck out swinging on his second at bat. And he just seems to be pressing a little bit. I mean, that's the only thing I can liken it to, is that he's just trying to find his rhythm. And I guess this time of the season, a lot of guys are, other than Mookie Betts, who did have an off day today. His average dropped over 100 points. He was batting 618, 613 yesterday, going 0 for 4 today. He's now batting 500 with an on-base percentage of 621 and a slugging of 1136. So not too worried about him. And I'm also not worried about Shohei Ohtani. But there are some at-bats where he just doesn't look like he's in rhythm or in sync. He's complaining a lot. He's, making faces to the umpire. Didn't think that was a strike. And some of them were, even though they were, right on the corner or the edge of the plate, they were strikes. It just seemed like he was looking for a different pitch. He wanted something middle to in up, and he couldn't find it until his 3rd at-bat when he hammered that double into the right field bleachers. So I'm sure he'll find it. Shouldn't be too worried about Shohei Ohtani. But as Max Muncy said, if your name is not Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani, or Freddie Freeman, there's a little bit of added pressure on you. And I brought it up yesterday that I feel like having those three guys in a row is kind of giving away a little bit, because if if the guys behind them don't show up, have an off day, then it's going to leave the Dodgers hanging. Well, today it was the exact opposite. The three big names did very little. Again, Shohei Ohtani did have a run scored and a double, but other than that, just the one hit between the three of them. Teoscar Hernandez 2 for 4 with the home run, which made the game 4-2 in the 6th inning. I'm sorry, that made it 4-3. So in the 8th inning was his home run, but he had 2 hits and a solid performance at the plate. Chris Taylor, again, really good at the plate. I think it's the first time we've seen him start this year, as far as I can remember. He had an RBI, a run scored, but walked 3 times, so didn't do a ton for his average, but a clutch performance for him. Kike Hernandez had a hit. His batting average is really, really struggling. 143. As I said, James Outman 0 for 4. Did have an RBI on a fielder's choice nubber, but he's batting 118. So he's going to need to find some rhythm. And Miguel Rojas started at shortstop because Gavin Lux did not start. Mookie Betts played second, and Miguel was 0 for 2. He's batting 333. Austin Barnes got on base a couple of times. So a batting average of 500 for the Riversidean Austin Barnes. Got a base hit and a walk. And, he's definitely not known for his stick. So it was nice to see that. But all in all, the point that Max Muncy was making is like, there is pressure on the rest of this lineup to support and keep up with the big three, Betts, Ohtani, and Freeman, for probably the main reason that I am feeling like we shouldn't have those three guys batting in a row, because there's the amount of focus that's on those three guys. If they get on base, and we have to assume that what we saw today is somewhat of an anomaly, those guys only with 1 hit between the three of them, it's not going to happen very often. So if the guys behind them aren't taking care of business, the pundits, the people that are breaking these games down like me, are going to criticize those guys. So they don't want that. So they want to come up there and produce and keep up with the rest of those guys. I mean, even Will Smith, I thought he was in the on deck circle, but did not get to the plate. So he had the day off. But even he, he's a high paid guy as well. They gave him $100 million, and they were talking about that and saying, I bet Max Muncy would like to see that kind of money. Obviously, he'd like to stay a Dodger as long as possible, and they've paid him pretty well, but not that kind of coin. So the pressure for these other guys is definitely hanging over their head. But all in all, you can't overlook the fact that Betts, Ohtani, and Freeman have the most pressure. The pressure that's hanging over their heads is enormous. Whether or not we feel they're going to live up to that pressure is a whole nother story. I've said it a few times. I don't know that I love this type of makeup, right? Well, let's just throw all kinds of money at our lineup and hope for the best. More often than not, obviously it's going to work out, but what if it doesn't? I mean, the fact of the matter is, the Dodgers are expected by themselves, by everybody watching, by the organization, to win the World Series. And anything short of that is an utter failure. So that's the pressure on the entire organization, the coaching staff, Dave Roberts, all the players. There is an enormous amount of pressure hanging over this team's head right now, from Mookie Betts to Shohei Ohtani to Freddie Freeman to the rest of them. They have a lot of pressure on their shoulders to win the World Series because of the money the Dodgers have invested in this squad. So everyone's got pressure, and I feel like they're owning it, and that's the best you can do. I personally am a little bit more in favor of an underdog scenario where they rally and they, guys that aren't expected to be great play above their heads. But that's not what we have here. So we have to appreciate the fact that we have some of the greatest players in the game, and hope and pray that they live up to those expectations and bring home a trophy in October, because this team is 100% due for one. It has been way too long. I know they won the COVID World Series, and I'm not taking anything away from that. It's definitely hardware. But Dodgers, with this kind of payroll and this kind of streak of winning the Western Division, need to win a World Series in a 162-game season. They are way overdue. Today, a come-from-behind win on a Max Muncy 2-run home run in the 8th. They beat the Cards 5-4. We'll take our final break and come back and get into a little bit more of the defense today, which was a little different and got a little sketchy at times there in the 6th inning. I'm Pete Fox. Thank you for joining me here on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel, the place to hang out when every game is done, and for listening to us on the Locked On Dodgers podcast feed. All right, today's show also brought to you by eBay Motors. eBay Motors' passion, drive, and patience is what brings home the winning trophy. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and keep it up to peak performance, from superchargers to roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, brake kits, and everything else you need to keep your car on the road. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for, and with eBay's guaranteed fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. You basically just say, hey, I have a 2017 Nissan Altima and I need the brakes for that, front, brake pads, rotors, and then they'll say, all right, here are a bunch of options, and this, yes, does fit your car. So if you have, obviously brakes are fairly standard, but if you're looking for more obscure part that are sometimes hard to find, it's a lot easier on eBay Motors. And the fact that they tell you, yes, this part is the right part, is a sense of confidence that I always enjoyed, because I don't have to worry about if the part comes and then I'm trying to put it on and it doesn't fit, and then I got to send it back, and you don't have to worry about all that stuff. But if you do send it back, you will get your money back. eBay Motors has you burning rubber, not cash, with all the parts you need at the prices you want. And again, you save a ton. Like on brakes, it's probably a quarter of what you would spend at an auto parts store. It's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive and running smoothly at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers. All right, Dodgers, a 5-4 come from behind win over the Cards. They kept scratching away, clawing away. 5 innings of a fairly lackluster performance. They got the leadoff guy on in the 2nd, did nothing with that, and then again in the 6th, and they got 2 in the 6th, right? That's when they finally scratched through. The Cards just really had it working today, and Steven Matz had them baffled for a little bit. They got to Kittredge a little bit for a hit. They kind of started clawing away, and then what's that guy's name? Palante went an inning and a third, giving up the 2 runs on 1 hit, and then King gave up the home run to Max Muncy. So they kept clawing away, and that's what you like to see. But in the 6th inning, there was a little bit of, I don't know, I just kind of felt like the defense kind of fell asleep there. There was the interference, catcher's interference, which I've seen enough of that, right? Like yesterday it cost the Dodgers a run, and today it did too. And I'm sorry, that is just a defensive thing that is lazy or a little bit too aggressive. Maybe it's just too aggressive. I guess that's the way to put it. You want that catcher as close to the plate as possible, because that makes the vision for the umpire seem better. That's why it happens. But to me, because if the catcher is back too far, just to give you a little, inside baseball as to why they're crunching on the plate like that, the closer they are to the plate, the less opportunity it has for the ball to come down or move. So they want to catch it as close to the plate, because that's where the umpire is judging whether or not it is a ball or a strike. But because if you're back too far, it'll come across the plate at one position and then reach the catcher's glove at another position. And what the umpire is supposed to be judging the pitch on is when it crosses the plate. at those, at 90 plus miles an hour on a regular basis, it is hard to differentiate between where it crosses the plate and when it hits the catcher's glove. But the fact of the matter that the Dodgers have had 2 catchers interference in 2 days, and that's Will Smith and Austin Barnes, to me is unforgivable. That can't happen. It didn't affect them today, but it did score a run for the Cards. That made it 4-0. There was 2 on with 1 out, a couple of walks. So they were just lazy across the board. The pitching wasn't great in the 6th for the Dodgers, a couple of walks, got the bases loaded, then a hit by a pitch. That made it 3-0. And then the catcher's interference with the bases loaded, something they said that hasn't happened since the 60s. A catcher's interference with the bases loaded. They couldn't find a record of that happening again. So that tells you how rare it is. And the fact of the matter that can't happen. And the other part about it that was driving me crazy as a former high school baseball coach was it wasn't like it caught yesterday, at least with Will Smith. I don't remember who it was, maybe Arenado, but the interference, maybe it was Goldschmidt, I think. The tip of the bat hit Will Smith's glove. Today, whoever the interference was, the batter was, I don't remember, but it caught Austin Barnes' glove like on the logo. And that's how far up he was on the plate. Like, dude, calm down, back up. I know he's a good defensive catcher, right? That's why they put him in there. That's why he's still on the team, for crying out loud. His batting average is like 200, I talked to some Dodger fans at spring training, and, people kind of go, Austin Barnes he's not Kike Hernandez, right? Kike Hernandez will be beloved by Dodger fans regardless of what his batting average is. Austin Barnes is a good guy. He seems very intense. Clayton Kershaw loves him, so a lot of Dodger fans are aware of that and, give him a slide, a pass because of Kershaw's affinity for him. But he is a good defensive catcher, and that sometimes is hard to find. So to me, it just seems like it's something that Austin Barnes should be aware of. I don't think the Dodger coaching staff has a problem with it, but to me, it was frustrating, right? Because that inning, they gave up a couple of runs, and it with walks and hit by pitch, catcher's interference. I see that and I go, I know it's early in the season. Don't worry. It's fine. But I just can't help but look ahead and go, what if that happens in the playoffs? And it's a meaningful run because everything is obviously magnified. Of course, maybe Austin Barnes has a different approach in the playoffs than he does in, game 6 of the regular season. But to me, I'm just, that's frustrating. And I just don't think that can happen because, for the most part, the Dodgers defense is super sound, right? They don't make a lot of mistakes. The one big potential issue that we've heard a lot about in the last couple of days is Max Muncy's defense, that he's been a problem over there. But he's also been working very hard to improve his defense because there's no chance that he's going to be the Dodger DH anytime soon with Shohei Ohtani on this team. So he is aware that he has to up his game as a defensive third baseman. So he had a problem yesterday, that interference call. He got eat up by a ground ball. So it's not great. It's definitely, not Mike Schmidt territory, but I think he is improving. He is getting better. And today he sat out early and Kike Hernandez played and he did just fine. He's a very versatile player. Obviously Mookie Betts moving around the infield seems to be working out just fine. It's rather remarkable. I think a lot of us take it for granted, the fact that this outfielder is now the Dodgers starting shortstop and today played second base and, doesn't have a problem with any of it. Very smooth, very easy. It's all very within his control. So that's good. From, obviously Freddie Freeman's a Gold Glover. So Gavin Lux, great defender at second base. They moved him from short to second because of his arm, not because of his glove. And they're really more in love with his bat than anything. So maybe great's an exaggeration. A very good, solid defender. In the outfield, James Outman is very good. They have a good defensive squad. Dodgers don't make a lot of mistakes or errors on defense. It's about what they can do at the plate and what they can do on the mound. So that 6th inning, based on balls, catcher's interference, hit by pitch, all of that to me is like, you're better than this. game 6 or not, game 106. That stuff can't happen. So hopefully they got yelled at. That's all I'm asking for, right? Somebody shook their finger. Hey, that can't happen. Austin, you have to be better, right? I'm sure it didn't, but I hope that it did. But all in all, a 5-4 win. Gavin Stone, 5 innings, gave up 3 runs on 7 hits while striking out 7. Vesia, a solid performance. He had 1 inning, allowed 1 run. Krismat was the guy that I liked. I thought he was pounding the zone and really, really had good control. He went 2 innings, allowed just 1 hit. So he got the win. He's now 1-0, and he deserved it. Daniel Hudson, again, came in the 9th and shut him down 1, 2, 3 for the save. So a pitching performance today that I would grade at like B+, A-. I mean, Stone wasn't terrible. Probably could have been better. Gave up 7 hits. So, he probably gets a B-, C+. As far as the rest of the bullpen, A. Solid A. Not an A+, not an A-, just an A. So a good day for the bullpen, a decent day for Gavin Stone, 85 pitches, his ERA now 5.4 in the no decision. So Dodgers come from behind to win it. They're now 4-2. They have a record at home of 3-2. The Cards leave the ravine, heading south to San Diego to face the Padres. They're now 1-3, having yet to play in St. Louis at Busch Stadium. As for the Dodgers, they are off tomorrow. Yes, I believe they are. Nope, they will take on the Giants at the Ravine. So that is a 7-10 start, and I will be with you immediately following that game. Giants coming in off of a loss today. So it's always fun when the Dodgers and Giants hook up, and I'm assuming it will be more of that tomorrow. Again, thank you for joining me here on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel, the place to hang out when every game is done. And thanks for listening to the Dodger Postcast on the Dodgers Podcast feed. Come on after every game and break it down for you today. A 5-4 come from behind win over the Cardinals. Don't forget to check out Jeff and Vince tomorrow morning on the Dodger Daily Podcast, which of course you can find in those same 2 places. Have a good night. Thanks for joining me. I will talk to you again tomorrow after the Dodgers and Giants game comes to a conclusion.